Hello, viewers. I'm Vibhuti Jha. This is Jaipur Dialogue USA. Welcome to the show. As always, I request you to please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Press the bell icon and be on the alert. Today, wanted to talk to you about a very significant element. As the saying goes, that in politics and diplomacy in life, forget about 7 hours, forget about 7 days, even 7 hours is enough to change the equations as they existed or whatever the dynamics of change happen. So India-US relationship is a very critical element from my point of view. I've always said not about the oldest and largest, strongest and biggest democracy. I've always said that India and United States are the two most prominent democracies of the world. And the woke army, you know the definition of woke army, which is made up of communists, Marxists, socialists, extreme liberals, Islamists, and whoever it is. They want to upend these two democracies. The biggest challenge the woke army faces is the existence of two leaders, Mr. Trump in the United States and Mr. Modi in India. The woke army knows that if they are able to upend these two systems, they dominate the whole world. And that's why Operation Sindoor was a very pivotal point in India's external impact. To talk about this, and in the Indo-US relationship, to talk about this, I have the greatest of pleasure in welcoming Mr. Kanwal Sibalji, who was the former foreign secretary of the government of India. He has seen the world, he knows the world, and who better to knock on his brains to talk about the Indo-US relationship post Sindoor, Operation Sindoor scenario. Mr. Trump has done what he has done. Only he is capable of doing what he does. Looks like the bromance between Modi and Trump is over. Is it? I do not know. The current flows in more ways than one. What is visible, there are many more invisible elements playing in the whole process. So, Kawalji, welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA, and pleasure to hear from you. What is going on?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I think what is going on is quite complex. You earlier mentioned quite rightly that the woke brigade is out to topple, as you said, the US democracy and the Indian democracy. To some extent, I would have thought that might have been true until Mr. Trump, in the connection with the Sindoor operation, has taken a position which does not fit into this matrix. Because here is a man who's fighting the woke elements in the United States, and he's taken a position on the Sindoor operation, which is manifestly pro-Pakistan, and if I may say so, by implication, pro Field Marshal C. Munir, who is a mullah in uniform, radical Islamic bigot. Quite apart from the fact that Pakistan uh, remains a, a, a terrorist state, uh, which has a great deal of Islamic radicalized elements in its polity, and that and this is now reflected even in the fact that when those who were killed in the Bahawalpur attack um, had their funeral ceremonies, or was it Muridke? Uh, Muridke. There were high people from the armed forces of Pakistan who attended the funeral. They're quite unabashed about these linkages, knowing that this will be publicized internationally. But they have weathered these storms in the past. After all, Osama bin Laden was sheltered in a safe house quite close to the military cantonment of Pakistan, and they didn't pay a price for this. And therefore, they have learned from experience that this will be tolerated. Anyway, the long and short is that Operation uh, Sindoor has been very successful. I'll come to some of the weaknesses in terms of the narrative when you ask me that question. It's been very successful. There's no doubt about it. Remarkably successful in many ways. And Prime Minister Modi showed a great deal of courage, I must say, and determination in responding extremely severely to the Pahalgam attack, and had announced that the response would be unimaginable. So, apart from the many diplomatic steps that were taken, the most important being holding in abeyance the Indus Waters Treaty, which has tremendous implications down the line in terms of Pakistan's economy and its survival, in fact, in some ways. The military steps have been remarkable. One couldn't have imagined that they would attack the terrorist hubs in Pakistan, Murid or Bahawalpur, something that was always on the public mind or on the mind of many who felt that Pakistan needed to be appropriately treated. Uh, but there was always this concern that this was a bridge too far. If you recall it, when we launched the Balakot operation, it was done with a great deal of hesitation and great deal of concern, where we announced in advance that no military targets were attacked, or rather not in advance, where we made it clear that no military sites in Pakistan were attacked. The Pakistan military was not targeted. And Balakot was just on the edge of Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan proper, so as not to give the impression that we were launching military operations in the heartland of Pakistan. But this time we have done that. Nine critical air bases of Pakistan were attacked. Now we have, in a sense, overcome that great inhibition that our planners had, that in case we took such a step, we will then be faced with the prospect of a nuclear response from Pakistan. Because all these years, one of the great factors inhibiting us was that Pakistan is a nuclear capable country.
Right.
And they are pretty loose with the nuclear talk, and they could be irrational. After all, promoting terrorism against India for almost 3 decades, given the disparity in power and Pakistan's own self-interest, is an irrational act. And therefore, one may have thought that they could act irrationally, and they had developed tactical nuclear weapons. They may actually use them. And it was therefore not our interest to provoke a major war with Pakistan. So this had held us back. But this time, we decided that we were not going to be deterred by that, and that there was an assessment that since we were not attacking the very existence of Pakistan, Pakistan will not be able to cross the nuclear threshold. I think what has also happened is that what the conflict in Ukraine has demonstrated to all planners, that there is a large scope of military action below the nuclear threshold. After all, Russia is, along with America, the foremost nuclear power in the world. They have tremendous nuclear capability. And yet, look at the manner in which Russia is being targeted by nuclear weapon states on the other side. After all, NATO has three nuclear weapon states: the United States, France, and Great Britain. And United States is the foremost nuclear power in the world. And they are conducting openly this proxy war, imposing huge punishment on Russia, knowing that Russia will not cross the Rubicon when it comes to the use even of tactical nuclear weapons. I think we may have, therefore, assessed the situation that talk of using nuclear weapons is easy, but taking that fateful step is committing suicide, in a sense. And therefore, we decided to take the action that we did, and very successfully at that. Though, mind you, whether Pakistan has been taught a lesson and they have absorbed that lesson, and they'll give up the use of terrorism against India, or seize this permanent policy of permanent hostility towards India, or modify it substantially and progressively. All these questions are up in the air. Personally, I'm not very optimistic.
I agree with you that it is difficult to be optimistic about Pakistan's conduct. Here is a very important point from my, thinking that I was doing on this subject matter, that Pakistan has also complained to the world, and this always beats the narrative that, oh, we are also big sufferer of terrorism, Islamic terrorism. More people die in my country because of this one. You also pointed out the whole world saw Pakistan's role. There is nothing to know, nothing new to know about Pakistan's involvement and engagement and their shenanigans in this matter. However, I had immediately thought about it that if Pakistan suffers from terrorism and they are not able to handle it as they claim, how come the Indic narrative that you can't handle terrorists within your country, we will help you, collaborate with us? Pakistan always asks for collaboration, right? Joint investigation, joint this and that. So why aren't we making that statement that you are not able to handle terrorists? You claim that you suffer from terrorism yourself. I'm helping you, join me. What is wrong with that thought process, and why is it not possible? Why aren't we asking them to support us instead of doing that? And what is clear, that this particular Operation Sindoor, Pakistan did not expect such a gigantic response. And as a result of which, to use the proverb, they were caught pants down, hands up. And that's what the frustration is all about there.
Well, firstly, their terrorism is homegrown entirely. It's a product of unleashing these forces after the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and using, in collaboration with the Americans and the Saudi Arabians, jihad as a force against the atheist communists in Afghanistan. They thought, Brzezinski and company, that this was a good way to mobilize these Islamist forces. And these Islamist forces, which were well financed and well motivated, they then developed roots in Pakistan. And then over course of time, as a result of Wahhabi, uh, the spread of Wahhabist ideology by the Saudis, etc., etc., the madrasas were financed, were set up, and they produced all these madrasa trained jihadi minded radicals, which were the base of the Taliban. And then the Taliban, as you know, successfully uh, took over Afghanistan uh, with the help of the Americans and the Pakistanis and everything else. Uh, Earlier on, they were the Mujahideen. They were not called the Taliban, but in the second phase, they were called the Taliban.
Mhm.
And now uh, there is a blowback. There is a blowback by the madrasa trained Taliban people. The offshoot of those Taliban is the TTP, the
Right.
Taliban Pakistan. And they are the ones now who are creating mayhem in Pakistan. But it's not only that. Pakistan has always been a divided society. And in Islam, when you are divided, then you use violence. Therefore, Shia Sunni, there have been this Shia Sunni um, business in Pakistan where Shias have been targeted over a long period of time and continue to be the case today. Um, in the sense that the Pakistan polity, which is based on a certain form of Islamism, Islamic ideology, has inbuilt into it the use of violence, and indiscriminate violence, and inhuman violence, which then can be described as terrorism. And now, and then, of course, that this became, some of these elements became very useful to the ISI and the Pakistan military to foment trouble and violence in Jammu and Kashmir, which started in a very serious way at the end of 1989, 1990, when the entire Kashmir blew up and the Kashmiri Pandits were forced out of Jammu and Kashmir. So the terrorist blowback in Pakistan is a result of their domestic situation and their domestic policy and divisions in their society and the leeway given in Islam to use violence to settle score. So to say that they are victims of terrorism,
Yeah.
it is inflicted. It's self-inflicted. Now,
Yes.
we've not promoted the terrorism in Pakistan at all because that's not the way we function as a society, as even a religion, if you like. Anyway, to your other question about cooperation with Pakistan, we did that. After all, dialogue is a form of cooperation.
Yes.
We began a composite dialogue in a serious way in the middle 1990s in order to find common ground and a consensus on tackling terrorism together. In fact, if you read the statements, joint statements that were issued, and the declarations that were issued, there is open reference in it to working together to eliminate all forms of terrorism. The January 2004 statement issued between Prime Minister Vajpayee and General Musharraf in Islamabad is very revelatory, where one of the articles very clearly says that Pakistan will not allow the territory under its control uh, to uh, conduct any form of terrorism. This was very significant. One, of course, was the fact that he said that. The other was under its control, which meant that PO Jammu and Kashmir, under its control, will not be used as a base for terrorism against India. And then subsequently, as you know, after the Mumbai attack occurred, we went into full-fledged conversations with Pakistan, negotiations with Pakistan, to see if through a legal process, Pakistan could fully cooperate with us and look into the conspiracy on their side, and then try those people who were responsible for conducting this horrible attack. Nothing happened, as you know. And then subsequently, in the case of uh, the Pathankot, the attack on the Pathankot airbase, we went even further. We invited them to send a delegation to conduct joint investigations on the spot with us, because in principle they agreed that this had been carried out from their territory. But after their delegation came, which included ISI elements, and there was criticism in India that we are allowing the Pakistani ISI into our important airbase. But this was done in good faith. And then what happened? They said it was an operation that was conducted by India itself to give Pakistan a bad name. In the sense they said that it was some conspiracy by us. So we've never had any cooperation with Pakistan despite commitments on their part. Beyond that, within the SARC framework, there is a joint agreement on combating terrorism, the counter-terrorism agreement within SARC. Pakistan has never cooperated. I have often said in the past and directly to the Pakistani interlocutors that give us one instance, just one instance, where you shared critical information with us with regard to an impending terrorist attack in India, where you said that you have information. Since you said these people are not under your control, that you have information through your sources that something is being planned. We are warning you in advance. Take care. This is our information. Never, never, never have they done for the last God knows how many decades. Now, Bilawal Bhutto, as you know, yesterday or day before, somewhere, he has said that we know where the terrorists are in Muridke and Bahawalpur and in Muzaffarabad or whatever. And if India asks us nicely where they are, we will tell them where they are. I mean, this man is a joker. He's a joker. It is remarkable with what uh, the manner in which they can just lie and prevaricate and mislead themselves and international public opinion. Arch hypocrites. Here is a man whose grandfather was hung by a military general his mother, as he himself said, the Musharraf, the murderer of his mother. Here is a man who suffered at the hands of the,
Military. Yeah.
the bearers of terrorism in Pakistan, and here he is going around telling the world how innocent they are.
This is what bothers me, and this is what baffles me. I mean, it's actually a case of a chutzpah by these Pakistanis that now they are nominated or appointed as the vice chairman of the counter-terrorism measures of United States Security, the United Nations Security Council. Not only that, Pakistan has the sole chairmanship of sanctions against Taliban. How cruel, how pathetic is the international organizations treating Pakistan with such kid gloves? And that comes out perhaps, to make it a very honorable mention. Pakistan has always been, like the defense minister told in his interview to a channel, that we have been doing the dirty job of the Western Americans for the last 30 years, and maybe they encashed a few IOUs with America. That's what reflects in Trump's behavior. So, my question here is also asking, is the international community blind, deaf, willful defaulter in treating Pakistan with such kid gloves? That's is a matter of concern. Somewhere along the line, they are able to manage their PR much better. And I call Pakistan the courtesan of the Western nations. And the courtesan, often knows the secrets of its paramour. So, what is the dirty secret that ISI knows that the rest of the Western world and America is scared that the world must not know?
See, my view is different. There are many
Okay.
people who've been saying that Pakistan is better at diplomacy than India is, etc.,
No,
etc.
I'm not saying they're better than India. I'm saying that they are able to manage their.
I'm responding to you in a different way,
Okay,
but it also answers your question.
sure.
It's not that they are in any way better or more persuasive or more effective on the ground. It is because the others are interested in backing them. And therefore, since they get their backing from others, not because Pakistan is persuasive, it's because the others want to back them for certain reasons, which is why they appear to be more successful than us. To the contrary, those very same countries and elements and forces want to oppose India, want to keep pressure on India. And therefore, even if you have a very good case, they're not going to accept it. Because accepting that case would be that in the India Pakistan equation, they give India a better hand. They don't want to do that. They want to keep Pakistan as a force, potential force against India, as a potential pressure point against India. And they think it is very necessary for a strategic balance in what they could describe as South Asia to have Pakistan as sufficiently strong to deter India, which is why they help Pakistan and include the United States to become a nuclear power. Moment they signed a nuclear deal with us, what did they do? The very morrow they declared Pakistan as a non-NATO ally. They have been arming Pakistan. In fact, since I have experience of this directly, when we were under pressure by the United States on our nuclear thing, the responsibility for the nuclearization of so-called South Asia was put on India, saying it's because you are continuing to have your nuclear power program, you are incentivizing Pakistan to do so. Totally ignoring the fact that China has already transferred nuclear technology and missile technology. In fact, United States was party to that. So this is the reason why, even now, what you mentioned, that they have given Pakistan this these positions as the vice chairman of the counterterrorism committee and the chairman of the Taliban committee, this and that. And the countries, principal countries behind that, this is the UN Security Council. The non-permanent members don't really matter. It is
Right.
the permanent members matter. And in this, United States and China and Britain would support Pakistan. Now, Russia, to my mind, will remain passive. It will not oppose. France is the only country which we could count on to try and put in a country word, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, uh, they would also not want to be, no, they would also want to be party to the general consensus. And therefore the thing goes through. But the principal people responsible in this are the Chinese and the British and the Americans, and that's why they've got these positions. Uh, but I would see it in that way rather than any great how should I say belief that Pakistan is not responsible for terrorism after America directly suffered. What did Trump say in his first talk?
Exactly the point I was coming to. That
That we've
exactly.
given them 31 billion dollars of assistance, and we've got nothing in return except lies and deceit. What did Admiral Mullen say to the U.S. Senate? That the Haqqani network is the right arm of the ISI. They all know that. They all know that. I mean, Osama bin Laden was the biggest Islamic fugitive so far as the United States was concerned. In the entire war on terror, he was the linchpin. Where is he discovered? As I just mentioned, next to a Pakistani cantonment. And what did the Americans do? Nothing. The manner in which they sanctioned Iran, the manner in which they have sanctioned Russia. Where are the sanctions on Pakistan? In fact, while I was in office and even later, I've been telling the Americans and otherwise saying publicly that insofar as sheltering Osama bin Laden was concerned or sheltering the Taliban leadership, which, as you know, Pakistan denied that they were on their soil, I said at least the Americans should single out a few people in the military and civilian establishment who they know were in the know or were complicit with this and at least sanction them. Give some evidence that they are taking cognizance of Pakistan struck with terrorism, but nothing, nothing. And now what happens when former General uh, Munir Asim, who later became Field Marshal, when he visited the United States a few months ago,
Right.
who, he was received in the White House, he was received in the Defense Ministry, he was received by the previous Secretary of State, and he was received by the UN Secretary General. And now that he's become Field Marshal, which what does it mean? It means the more militarization of Pakistani polity. That means less democracy. And and what does President Trump say? Great leaders in Pakistan. Leaders are great in Pakistan. And he's saying this on the morrow of this guy self-elevating himself to a field marshal with all the implications it has. Now, what does this mean? I mean, we must draw the right lessons from this.
So, what is the lesson that we draw from it? That China, America, Britain are against us. They foster Pakistan, and for Pakistan, to its credit, takes full advantage of that. Their
Yes.
belligerence against India is visible and known because I remember 26/11. I was in Bombay, and just matter of coincidence that my life was saved because I was not present in that moment. That's not the story, but the important part is that despite giving all the evidences to Pakistan, they violate every single democratic principle. They still are asking for evidence. They keep asking the evidence play. Here is another important part you alluded to yourself, that Trump was so virulent in his statement against Pakistan in his first term. Looks like the military junta in Pakistan knows presidents come and go, and the State Department or the Defense Department or the deep state deals in a particular way. And look at turnaround in Trump. How does one explain that? I mean, suddenly everything about India was over. It's like a divorce. Mr.
Mm.
Trump is a past master in divorces. So,
Mhm.
okay, end the relationship. Same with Musk, same with Vivek Ramaswamy, over. This is the issue that I wanted to ask you, that how does one attempt explain that? He has never said anything against Modi. He has only talked about this part. but it still baffles people for the way he has made this crypto thing. I want your thought on it. What is
Hmm.
this crypto thing that Trump has fallen for? Is that his weakness, the money part of it? Your thought on it?
Couple of things. One is in his inaugural address, if you remember, which I was a bit surprised. He praised Pakistan because Pakistan had handed over one of the chaps that the United States was
Mm, mm.
trying to get its hand on. Uh, and this was in his inaugural address, huh? Very important.
Yeah.
Uh, if you go back when Imran Khan visited him in the White House, he said, I would, and he told his words, I would love to mediate between India and Pakistan on
Yes.
Kashmir. And naturally, Imran Khan encouraged him to do that. So he's had this bugbear in his mind. And this has nothing to do with his uh, second term, uh, you know, obsession with being seen as a peacemaker.
Mm.
In the first term, he, in some senses, yes, meeting Kim Jong Un or whatever his name is, Kim Jong Un and all that. He was trying to do that too,
Yeah.
but he wanted to mediate even then in Jammu and Kashmir. Uh, and then he's uh, during his first term, as you know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he cleared some funding for Pakistan. Uh,
Yes.
and then, of course, under the Democratic administration, they cleared 300 and some $1 million for the upkeep of their F-16s or whatever. Uh, See, the thing is that if you just go and look back, Pakistan was a member of the Baghdad Pact.
Hmm.
It was a member of CENTO. Then, under American impulsion, it became a member of the RCD. It actually applied also for membership of Seattle, which the Americans did not agree to. And then it uh, they have fully the central command has worked together with the Pakistanis for many years and years and years and years. So they are very long-standing linkages, military linkages with Pakistan. Uh, the CIA has been very active in Pakistan. We know that they gave them bases in Peshawar for this U U whatever that plane which went to
YouTube plane. Yeah.
use and all that.
Yeah.
That is what we know from the surface.
Yes.
But God knows behind the scenes how much collaboration there was between the two sides. There is also the belief that United States and Pakistan have had a robust conversations on the protection of Pakistani nuclear assets, the safety keys and everything else, whatever. So there has been a lot of uh, cooperation on the ground. And this is not so with India. India and the United States have been at the loggerheads for decades during the time when actually the US and Pakistan were working very, very closely. US has never tried to wean away Pakistan from China. On the contrary, under their watch and despite their recent, uh, cam- the crusade against China under the Biden administration also, they have done nothing with regard to try and delink the relationship between the US and China, US and between Pakistan and China. Uh, on another occasion, I recounted something to somebody, and I will recount it to you also. When I was foreign secretary, that Gwadar project had been announced by China and Pakistan, and I sensed the strategic uh, danger of this to us. And in my official dialogue in New Delhi with Richard Armitage, the Deputy Secretary of State, I raised the Gwadar issue. I expressed India's concerns and I wanted to have a reaction. He didn't react and he kept on talking about the things and this and that. And towards the end, before we were closing the meeting, I again said, You've not responded to my concerns about Gwadar. And he said, Oh, we never thought about it. So, as far back as that, alerting the Americans about the CPEC and everything else. but they have totally overlooked it. And the implication of this is what? They have now, the Chinese, direct access through Pakistan to the Arabian Sea and a potential, they already have a commercial base, a trade base, but a potential naval base in this area, in the Indian Ocean, which in fact makes the entire uh, strategy of deterring China in the Indian Ocean that much more difficult. Because the Indian Ocean is not only Bay of Bengal eastwards, it's also the Arabian Sea and
Right.
China's penetration in the Arab world, where China has enlarged its footprint enormously. So, but United States has been ignoring that, and Pakistan has been the linchpin of this. So, I think we have to understand what the profound basis of this relationship is. They want to keep Pakistan on their side. They want to keep Pakistan as a pliant state, despite all the difficulties Pakistan causes them, because in this region, they think that Pakistan is useful to them uh, in terms of maintaining their position, in using Pakistan as a counter to India, to maintain a strategic balance in the subcontinent. Let me tell you something again from my direct personal experience, that whenever the strategic issues, when we began the strategic dialogue with the United States under my watch, the, the next steps in strategic partnership that was launched under when I was Foreign Secretary, and I had taken the initiative uh, in our own government to say that, look, if we want to have a strategic dialogue with the United States, then we must address strategic issues. And the strategic issues are nuclear and missile issues, and therefore, etc., etc. But on the American side, whenever their proposal came with regard to these two issues of India's nuclear and missile capability, they always tagged it along with Pakistan's. And it was clearly their intention that they have to have strategic stability in the subcontinent. And, and therefore, this is not going to go away. It's not going to go away, and we have to live with this scenario. Now, with regard to what you said about crypto and everything else, I don't understand how this crypto works, but there is a belief that this can become a source of controlling the Pakistani financial system by this group, this private group in which apparently the son or son-in-law of Trump and the son of Witkoff have interest, or there's some chap called Beach or somebody who's a great
Yes.
friend of God knows.
Yes.
That there are close family friends of the Trump family who are involved in all this, and this will give them access to this, the full control about the Pakistani finances, and in a non-transparent way, where a lot of money can be used for all kinds of things. I don't know. I don't understand it. But if this is the reason, if this be the reason, it is absolutely remarkable that very sensitive political and geopolitical issues are being addressed by through purely business profiteering interests.
I'm very, 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 very concerned about that part you mentioned, that we will have to live with this. The Pakistani equation with America, that they want Pakistan for reasons A, B, C, D, E, F, that is good to them. So, as the saying goes, I always say, knowing what we know now, how do we live with that? Because they will keep doing a Pahalgam, Pathankot, things like that, and every time, like Prime Minister has laid down the doctrine very clearly, that we don't make a discrimination between the state sponsorship and the terrorist acts. Each act will be responded very heavily. So that doctrine being in place, and you know, Trump claiming that he's responsible for the peace that the ceasefire that happened, which India calls it as a interregnum kind of a thing, that we have only, stopped. We have not. It's not a ceasefire. That being the situation, where does India go from here, knowing what we know now?
Couple of things when we say that this is an interregnum or this Sindoor operation is still on. What it really means is that we have absolutely no guarantee that Pakistan will give up recourse to terrorism. And since we don't have that assurance, therefore we are keeping our options open, and we can relaunch a similar operation in the future. This is what it means. Uh, it doesn't mean that it's a pause, it's an interregnum, and we'll take the initiative to start this again. This will happen only if Pakistan conducts another major terrorist attack. But Pakistan being Pakistan, and the manner in which they feel that they have actually been victorious, and India has been put in its place, etc., etc., they will not risk a big attack uh, for the foreseeable future, or let's say for the immediate future. But they can always stage low-level attacks. Some locals are killed, an odd Kashmiri Pandit who's there is killed. There is ambush of some army personnel. It's been happening all the time. Two, three of them are killed or more. This is what they'll keep doing. And in a sense, they'll be testing India's doctrine and resolve, and will put our government under pressure, because the opposition will say precisely this. You said that Operation Sindoor is still on, and the terrorist attacks are still coming, still going on. So what are you doing about it?
Right.
India is not going to launch a major attack simply because two, three fellows get killed uh, by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. It's a very difficult situation. Very difficult situation. No country has won the war against terror. The
Yes.
the you know, the point is, you on the morrow of this Pahalgam and everything else, and the IMF gives 1 point some billion dollars to start with to
Yeah.
Pakistan. The World Bank promises, God knows, 30, 38, 40
40
billion,
billion dollars.
40
40
billion
billion.
in the
Yeah.
next few years to Pakistan. The ADB also gives them
Yes.
funds. Uh, then Trump praises the Pakistani leadership. There is no what will Pakistan conclude from this? That
That
they will
exactly is my worry, Kawal Saab. That exactly is my question. That, uh, where do we go from here? If this is the situation, what is the next stage? Because we keep asking America to declare Pakistan a terrorist nation, but we don't do it. And I was thinking about it, that idea in my head, which I tweeted a few days ago, that if we are not willing to declare Pakistan as a terrorist state after everything that we know, why not we declare them as an enemy state? I mean, that is as a diplomat, you will be able to say something on it, on that thought. And I said in my tweet, declare Pakistan as a hostile state or an enemy state, suspend all trade, commerce, which it has been done, trade, commerce, Bollywood, cricket, and everything else, and isolate them from Indian life. And India is the economy which is growing very rapidly. We are the fourth now, inching towards the third, and all the indications are that we are going to do better than where we are today. So why not we use the leverage of, if Britain wants to have a free trade agreement, why don't we put our own conditions of satisfaction?
see
If
couple
you
of
want
things.
to do this, you have to do that. Why
Couple of
not?
things.
Why don't we demand that?
One is that we have to have a legislation which allows us to declare a country as a terrorist state, like the United States has legislation. Now, will we be able to get a legislation of that kind passed in the Indian Parliament? I am not too sure. But assuming for a moment that we succeed in this and we declare them a terrorist state, which means that you can have no relationship with the Pakistan of any kind, which means you have to close down uh, our embassies. We have to break diplomatic relations and break all contacts with Pakistan. Uh, we have certain agreements with Pakistan. Those also will become redundant. Now, whether we want to do that, at what stage we may want to take such a step. It's a matter of policy and judgment. The other thing is the practical part of it. That declaring Pakistan a terrorist state is fine, but we can do all the things that you mentioned without declaring it a terrorist state. We can do it, and we can do it in a way that doesn't foreclose all future options, but nevertheless sends a very strong message. I think,
I I agree with that terrorist state designation. It has its complications in the international forum. I'm talking about one step lower, and that is declaring the hostile state. It is good for the minds of the people. Right now, as this country stands, my feeling is, based on some very good serious conversation, that the country is prepared. The people are wanting certain actions because people know a lot more than they knew before. So if nobody is helping us, let's help ourselves. And country will not hesitate in having a legislation with that. Those who will oppose, they will get spread naked.
the other thing is that, look, America declared many of these countries as axis of evil. But eventually they were talking to these axis of evil. Even today, they're talking to Iran.
Yeah, right.
And Trump talked to North Korea also. Uh, so, I mean, we can make these declarations, but what I mean is that satisfying ourselves by making declarations is one thing. The other is pursuing policies on the ground which have the same effect. That is another. So why not just do that? Uh,
Exactly.
we don't need to
Exactly.
trade. We don't need to trade with Pakistan. Therefore, insofar as these other exchanges, sporting exchanges, and everything else is concerned, there is no need to do that. But we do this. With BCCI will not play Pakistan in Pakistan or allow them to play in India, but we go and play in Dubai.
Right.
So there are other connections that we maintain with Pakistan. Uh, Now, with regard to the embassies, we despite 1962, we didn't close down our embassy in Beijing. So whether is there an advantage of breaking diplomatic ties altogether, or maintain the facade of having diplomatic ties, but actually no substantive work is done through these embassies if you don't have a high commissioner, or the number of diplomats is so limited that they can't work effectively on the ground. Now, coming back to another thing, you declare Pakistan a terrorist state, then what do you do with the Kartarpur corridor? I personally, I was very surprised that we went ahead and did this
Right.
corridor, knowing
Right.
that these people try and use elements in the Sikh community to destabilize Punjab. There are evident links between the ISI and the Khalistani, and some Babur Khalsa fellows are actually sheltered there. But we opened the corridor with great fanfare. So there are complicated issues. But I think coming back to what I had said earlier, the instrument that we have of the uh, Indus Waters Treaty, that is a very, very powerful instrument. It is non-kinetic, but its consequences are more than kinetic,
I
and
agree.
that's good use. And I was very glad the Prime Minister said something which has been on our mind all this while, that the Pakistanis forced us to build these hydroelectric uh, plants on the rivers allocated to Pakistan in a way that there was limited pondage, and even that pondage has got silted. And the Prime Minister said that now the effectively the pondage is 2%, and therefore he is now ordered that desilting should be done, which
Mm.
has explained why suddenly there was a huge rush of water downstream and then there has been a reduction of flow. This is a very powerful instrument because this actually complicates enormously the agricultural cycle in Pakistan.
Right.
And the Pakistan agriculture is damaged. Uh, I think you can understand the consequences
Yes.
of that.
Yes.
We have other instruments in our hands where we can put serious pressure on Pakistan. Finally, I think there is also the larger diplomatic angle. You see, when we project ourselves internationally as a country which considers the entire world as a family, Muslim, and
Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Yeah.
and we talk of dialogue and diplomacy,
Mm.
etc., etc. Then, if you take some of the steps that we are talking about, then it becomes very difficult to justify another part of our international discourse. So, you know,
I have a thought on that. Yes,
diplomacy
this
is
is something.
a very difficult
I,
phenomenon.
it is a difficult phenomenon. Nothing in life is easy, and important things are difficult to accomplish. Winning the World Cup T20 was difficult if Yadav had not taken that stupendous catch on the boundary. The 6 runs would have made South Africa win. So
Mhm.
as I say, extraordinary times, extraordinary measures. And
Mhm.
then declaring Pakistan as a hostile nation. I'm not necessarily saying terrorist, use the word terrorist nation, hostile nation, or an enemy state has a very good mind shift in the people. But they also looking for hum kar kya rahe, what is happening. The other part which I wanted to say was that they will do what they are doing. We have to do what we must. And there is one very interesting element here which I talked about in my other show, that Trump has willy-nilly introduced the word reciprocal tariff. Now, tariff is not something that he discovered or created. It has been in history forever since. But introducing the word reciprocal tariff, it means a lot in terms of reciprocity, demand for reciprocity. So I suggested to Omar Abdullah when he said that I will build a memorial for 27 people killed. I said, build a memorial for 500,000, 5 lakh of Kashmiri Pandits that left your state because of the threat of leave, convert, die, leave or die, right? Why don't you apologize for that? So if they don't make that ideological shift, it doesn't happen. They will continue doing because it allows them. I told a Muslim friend of mine here in New York that I can't trust you so long as you have the word kafir in your language. I can't trust you as a friend, and I will be very uncomfortable with you as in my neighbor because I know I'm in your target whenever time permits, whenever opportunity exists. When are we going to demand reciprocity in political, social, and cultural way of life? If you want it, you got to give it. This is what I'm trying to say. This is something which Stephen Cohen, the Russia specialist in America, he is no more, when he interacted with us in a particular forum, and he said, I don't like Trump, I don't like his policies, I didn't vote for him, but the man ends up saying things at times which are so correct. And one
Mhm.
of them, he had said in our meeting that he is absolutely right, that there is no other way out of Russia relationship unless you have a dialogue. And he categorically said that it is the Democrats who do not want Russian relationship to improve because Democrats are against Russia because of NATO scenario. So final word on this that I wanted you to say, can there be a Russia, India, China relationship?
I was, as foreign secretary, involved in the beginning of the RIC format. In fact, that's when it began. Uh, the Chinese were very reluctant. Uh, India was not enthusiastic, but since it was an idea pushed by Russia, we didn't want to oppose Russia. And this was the time when US unilateralism was at its height,
Right.
and Russia still was uh, was a, in terms of the relationship with China was still the had the upper hand. It was the leading within the RIC. It was the leading power. Subsequently, of course, the equations changed, and China has now outstripped Russia um, economically, of course, but also militarily in many ways.
Mhm.
Uh, so the equations have changed. Um, and at that time, we were also beginning to try and normalize our ties with China. We thought that since we had become a nuclear power, China would begin to look at India differently and treat India more as an equal than in the past. Uh, we were still under US sanctions, uh, and therefore we were also very much against US unipolarity and everything else. And so we therefore bought into this RIC, and the initial meetings were held. And then the Russians discovered that it was not a format in which, as they had hoped, India and China would build some kind of understandings. Uh, and then they gave up that idea of an exclusive RIC, and it became BRIC. They brought in Brazil uh, in order to give a wider intercontinental base to this grouping, which was against U.S. hegemony and unilateralism. And finally, it became BRICS with this, and now more countries have joined. RIC, therefore, has been overtaken by BRICS, or BRIC and BRICS.
Mm.
That's one part. The other is that if in recent years China had reached out to India more constructively, then maybe what Lavrov has said a couple of days ago, the time has come to revive the RIC, might have made sense. But what has happened? We had Doklam, then we had this this thing in Ladakh.
Mm.
Uh, China has uh, started asserting their claim on Arunachal Pradesh even more abrasively. The third or fourth time they have renamed locations in Arunachal Pradesh, giving them Chinese or Tibetan names,
Right.
fictitious names. Uh, they have we still have thousands of troops facing each other in Ladakh. There hasn't been de-escalation, and then moving the troops back to their normal peacetime locations. China continues to support Pakistan on terrorism, on everything else. Gives them shield actually on terrorism. In fact, they applaud even after the Pahalgam attack. They have
Yeah.
applauded Pakistan's contribution to counter terrorism,
Correct.
etc. So, on the trade issues, we thought that we could, uh, achieve some relative balance in our trade, but the wretched deficit has increased. It has increased to over 100 billion dollars. They have not yielded on that. Uh, so, what I can't think of any single substantive issue on which China in recent years has made some gesture to India. It's a different matter that uh, we have been cautious and wise in keeping China engaged, because unlike others, China is sitting on a border, and we understand the disparity in power between the two countries, and also the fact that China, being the biggest exporter in the world and the biggest manufacturer in the world, and providing some very vital intermediate goods to us for our own exports, we can't turn our back on China. So we're keeping them engaged. And at the same time, giving them 80, $100 billion of money from our side that keeps part of their polity engaged with us. They also want to give a picture that they're different from the West. They're different from the Americans. They're not hegemonic. They believe in win-win situations. They're not claiming this. They're not claiming that. So they're also a bit cautious that they should not engage in a vigorous, open, large dimensional conflict with India, especially at a time when they're coming more and more under pressure in the Western Western Pacific, or in Taiwan, South China Sea, etc. So they have to balance their geopolitical interests. They don't want a two-front situation, just as we don't want a two-front situation. But to the extent that they can pressure India, as they did in Ladakh, they've done it. So they also play a game of putting India under pressure, but not allowing the situation to escape control, to keep it controlled relatively. So this is what is going on. I don't think the time is ripe for RIC to meet because, and of course, and I'll end with that. Look, at the end of the day, Trump may Trump may be loose, may be insensitive, may be problematic for us, but our relationship with the United States is extremely important. It's the biggest relationship we have.
Yes.
The scope of the relationship is unparalleled with any other country, including Russia. Unparalleled.
It is. I totally agree with you. But the last question,
There's
last
just
thought
I
that I wanted you to come. Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I,
Sorry, sorry.
not that we have to gain from the United States. Therefore, at this point, when a chap like Lutnik is cautioning us even on the BRICS to go and have an RIC, I don't think is wise. Quite apart
Yeah.
from the other factors that I mentioned, we have to also control our signaling.
Final thing, I was going to come to the Lutnik statement and his four conditions that he laid out for India, that India has been rubbing us on the wrong side. I mean, come on, that was a stupid joke that he made, and to
Mm,
ask that India must stop dealing with Russia and everything else without them confirming anything else.
mm,
Where do you see these statements end up? Because it infuriates the people at large. It doesn't help the diplomatic cause, and it ruffles people on the wrong side of the thing. How does one respond to that? And you have been a foreign secretary. You're a career diplomat. What do you say to that? I tweeted to Asha Jadeja Motwani, who when she put that entire thing, that hey, I have my four conditions. Will Mr. Lutnik listen to that?
Well,
Your
the
thought.
thing is that America gets away with everything. Have they paid any price for anything? It may be self-imposed price because of their mistakes, but the others have not been able to impose any price on them. Has anybody ever sanctioned America? Has America been hauled over the coals of all the geopolitical mistakes it has committed? In the terrible manner in which they handled the Iraq crisis based on a lie, and of course the entire history of destabilizing governments and everything else. Uh, Even the fact that they extend their domestic laws to other countries because of secondary sanctions and this and that, there's nothing you can do. We stopped buying oil from Iran, which was a big strategic blow to us in our own neighborhood. From Venezuela, we don't buy oil anymore. This and that. Anyway, point is that they can say these things, they can get away with these things because there is no pushback. There is no way in which you can, inverted commas, punish the United States for its mistakes and follies. And if you say, look, you saying that you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, and we're going to hit you back with some instruments in our hands, then point is that you are now looking for a fight with the United States of America. And I don't think, given the disparity of power and the influence the United States has, that is a wise policy. So
I
countries,
agree with that. I
uh,
totally agree with that. Yes.
look at
You know,
the manner, look at the manner in which Trump treated the South African president when he visited him.
yeah.
He humiliated him. He humiliated him. But this is how it is. This is how it is that uh, the Lutnik is a Wall Street fellow. He may be well-meaning in his own way, but after years of India rejecting pressure on our relationship with Russia, after 4 years of democratic administration, we rejected these pressures repeatedly and openly. He again raises this issue that why do you buy arms? And also, okay, BRICS. Does it tell China we're not going to talk to you, deal with you, or do this because you're part of BRICS? I mean, it's just immature. It's immature on his
Mhm.
part, like that.
I want to thank you sincerely for a fascinating conversation. And, this is a never ending part. There are a couple of things that you draw the line. There is a Lakshman Rekha, what is known as the West is the red line. So our enemies are going to do what they want to do. India has to get ready to do what India has to do for itself, herself. And that's what is important. Oh, You know, it's just critical. The times have changed, and times have changed. We know a lot more than we knew before. And I always say that in this era of technology, news travels faster than the speed of lightning. And as a result of which, India demonstrated Operation Sindoor as a, superlative act of response for a very cruel thing. And one has to carry that narrative forward. You can't take me for granted. As I always say, never take anybody for granted. Never take your opponent for granted, because matches are lost by an unfortunate run out and a dropped catch, or a stupendous catch taken. So we got to be ready for that. And I think, knowing what we know now, in my opinion, knowing what we know now as an international banking and the way the money flows and everything else, you got to do what you got to do. As in America, they say a man has got to do what he has got to do. So India demonstrated in Operation Sindoor, and I think we have to be ready for any eventuality, because now we know our enemy, we know our friends. What's the use of talking about Shatru Bodh if we can't exercise our wiser judgment? Thank you, Kawal Saab. It is always a pleasure to interact with you, learn so much more. And, there are a few issues that I wanted to talk to you about, but we will keep it for the next time.
Great
So,
pleasure.
viewers, thank you for joining. As I always say, Satyameva Jayate. If Satya has to triumph, you got to stand up for it. There is no compromise on that. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaskar.